Okay, so in this video, I'm going to go and try to make a simple grade calculator. And it'll basically say like, hey, what's your current grade? What grade do you want in the end? And then we'll spit out a value that will essentially be like, oh, okay, this is what you need on the next assignment. So I've already gone ahead and made my folder, my file, and I'm going to bring up terminal over here. Copy full path and then change my directory. Cool, so that I can be ready to test it. So actually I'm gonna first write a planning text file over here, and it's basically gonna be like, okay, look, so ask current percentage, just to make it easy. Then I want to ask you know, desired percentage, right? And then last I want to do math to calculate next score, and then fourth I want to return value, right? So very, very simple, 4 steps, not gonna take too long. So yeah, actually I'm going to split this right there so that it's a little easier for us to see side by side, you know, where we're going. So as always, we're going to go ahead and write our class, public class, right, and then class, and then go ahead and write our main method. And then tag the end of main method. Right, so that's just some housekeeping. And so we're first going to start off by essentially asking the current percentage. So what we can do is we can say, well, we want to not only ask but receive a response. So we're going to need a scanner object, right? So what I'll do is I'll set up a scanner. Scanner, I like to name mine input is equal to new. And then we're taking values from keyboard system.in, right? And we need to import the whole scanner module. So I'm just going to import java.util.asterisk. And this just means anything that has java.util.everything will be pulled in. And actually it's good practice, so let me tag that. Imports everything java.util. Okay, and then this is setting up scanner object. And our scanner object essentially lets us take input from a user, like the keyboard or something like that. Otherwise, you know, there's no interactive measure between the person and the code. Okay, so we have a scanner. Cool. Now what we want to ask is we want to write system.out.println. Okay, ask, so what is the current percentage, right? And in order to make sure we get a legit value, what we want to do is we're going to write 2 decimal places only. That way, that just safeguards against anything else. And we want to save that as a float or a double. I'm going to go ahead and save that as a float. So float, as you might remember, is like having a it's basically having decimal points as opposed to integers, and double is the same thing, but here I'm just going to go ahead and use float. So float, and I'm going to name that current is equal to input.next float, and then that should be that. And then so what I did was tag that, so asking setting current percentage, and now I want to ask and set. So I'm going to asking setting desired percentage, and that's going to be essentially the same thing. It's going to be a system.out.println. I'm going to add what is the desired percentage. And again, I want two decimal places only. And tag that off. Now I'm going to go ahead and give myself some more space over here. And so now I'm going to ask, okay, I'm going to save that value. So another float desired is going to be equal to input.next float. Cool. Now that we have those two values, we want to do some math with it, right? And so what I want to do is I want to write another method for the math because I don't want it to get jumbled in the main method, right? And so let's say tomorrow we go and make it a little bit more complicated. I want that math to be somewhere else. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my comment. I'm going to write call math method here. And so that just gives me a way to see like, okay, this is what I should call the math method. And so let's go ahead and actually write the math method. So it's going to be returning because, it's going to be returning a value, right? So this is actually percentage needed on next, right? Percentage needed, that's just for space. That's going to be a float value, right? So what I'm going to write is it's going to be public static. Instead of void, it's going to be float. It'll return a float, and I'm just going to call it math calc, right? And open close and end of method math calc. Cool. Now let's think about what math calc will need, right? What will we need? We'll need a current percent and we'll need a desired percent, right? So they're both going to be floats. So float current, float desired, right? And so that gives us an indication as to how we should call the math method over here. And so I'm just going to go ahead and actually I'm just going to leave this for now. Let's just work on this method, right? And so here we want to do the math regarding how, like what we're going to need. So we can write over here, right, like a simple formula. We can write like desired grade is going to be equal to the current grade plus some value x, right, in percent. And then the current is obviously going to be an average of that. And the average is, in this case, two values. So if I'm rearranging to solve for x, right, I can do 2 times desired is equal to current plus x, and then take the 2 times desired and then subtract the current, which will leave me with the x, and I'm just gonna wrap this in that just to make it seem a little nicer. And so now that we have the math set, we know what to do, and this x is what we want to return, and that's going to be a float. So let's just call that float required, right? And that is just going to be we're just going to call it 0.00 for now. All right, and so now we have we know what we have to do with desired, and we know we have to do with current, and we have those two values over here, right? And so we can write required which is x in this case, is equal to 2 times desired, right, minus current, right? And now that value we just want to return required. Oh, there. Now, cool, but first I haven't called the math method yet, and also I want to store this into a variable. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to call float required. I can name it the same thing, but you can name it whatever. I can name it required percent, whatever, but I'm just going to call it required. It's going to be equal to math calc. And in this case, I'm just going to pass the local variables, so I don't need to add float. So this is going to be current and desired. And make sure that these are in the same order. Current, desired, or else if they're flipped, it's going to do the math wrong, right? And then now the final step is that we need to return it, so we need to print it out. And so for that, it's just going to be a system.out.println. You will need a, and then I kept a space, plus, required, plus percent on the next assignment. Right there. So now, we've written a bunch of code. Let's go ahead and test it. So I'm going to bring up our terminal over here. And first of all, make the compile it. So java c gradecalc.java. Let's see. Okay, one error. Oh, silly. I just need that. Save it. And let's bring up the terminal again. Double to float. Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna get rid of this as a whole and just initialize it right here. There. Actually, I'm gonna make this a little bigger just to see it. Okay. Cool. No errors now. Java grade calc. So what is the current percent? 2 decimal places only. So I'm just gonna call let's have an 87.02. What is my desired percentage? I want a 91.00. So I need a 94.98 on the next assignment, right? So now I know this is what I get. And so let's just do the math real quick, right? Let's see if I can bring up a calculator. So let's see if I get a 94.98 and then I add that value with my current 87.02. Boom, and then let me divide that by 2 to get the average. Yep, I get my 91.00 that I need. And so that's how we know that it works. It's a very, very simple application. If you want to go and add something that'll be like, oh, you'll need, do you want an A, do you want a B? So you could have something like that. You could start, diving real deep into this and make it into more than just this. Make it take into account like weight. Oh, exams are 80% and homework is 10% and quizzes are 10% or something like that. And you can work off of that. But for today, that's all we're doing. And I'm gonna go ahead and actually I think this is pretty much self-explanatory. So that's all for today. Thank you for watching.